Hi everybody, I'm Julie Moran.
And I'm Olga Villaverdi.
Welcome to The Balancing Act, and we want to dedicate this show to the millions of people around the globe battling rare diseases and their families and caregivers.
According to the patient advocacy group Global Genes, it currently takes on average of over 7 years to accurately diagnose a rare disease.
And most patients are misdiagnosed multiple times in the process. It's hard to believe. Today we introduce you to some extraordinary people who welcomed us into their world with open arms. And it all starts right now.
It's a rare disease impacting the lives of several thousand Americans. And while the overall U.S. population affected by it is small, for the families dealing with this condition, the implications are large indeed. Part 2 of our continuing series on hereditary ATTR continues. Christopher Cox reports from Boston.
It's rare, debilitating, and it's a fatal disease that runs in families with no known cure. Its name, hereditary ATTR amyloidosis. We're here in Boston on the banks of the historic Charles River to meet with two very special women impacted by this disease, to hear their stories and their hopes, and how it's impacting them, their lives, and their families.
The day after I turned 44, I got my feet out of bed, and I noticed as I put my feet on the floor that my feet began to tingle as if, they had fallen asleep. And I thought, oh, this will just go away. And throughout the day, it did not. And I tried to dismiss it. Well, I did a lot of walking, and I had bad shoes. 3 days later, the tingling started in my hands. And I remember calling Christina, and we had been talking, and I said, I think this may have started. And she's like, well, you better get to the doctor now.
Dawn and Christina knew what those symptoms meant. Bloodlines for this disease run deep in the family. Very close third cousins represent the 5th generation. Christina's 2 siblings are also positive for the gene mutation. You're both familiar with the family genealogy chart. Has that graphic been helpful for you both in understanding and communicating the disease?
For me, it's something I can also take to the doctors as proof that this isn't something to be dismissed. This is something that occurs every generation, and the 50-50 chance of this recessive gene plays itself out just in every generation. And for me personally, it seems like every 10 years someone in our family is affected and dies. And it wasn't until Christina's side of the family, where it was your dad and your aunt, that there was more hope. They caught it so early that there was a chance of life and it wasn't a death sentence.
So for me, the chart, it's kind of hard to see so many generations affected and so many families, but yeah, a little bit hopeful to see that within these generations, people are starting to live. There are new treatment options. Things are happening for us.
ATTR is, of course, a familial disease that afflicts through the generations. Patients and their family members become familiar with the symptoms, and younger patients that experience the disease are familiar with those symptoms, leading to an earlier approach to doctors and an earlier diagnosis.
Dawn, you tested positive for the disease nearly a decade before symptoms began showing up. Tell us about that.
The genetic confirmation shows that there might be the luck of the draw. It's a 50-50 chance of developing the disease. However, our family history, especially speaking back to that chart, shows that it's more than likely that you will develop the disease. And I got tested and watching my mother really go down a very dark path, and we struggled for answers, and I wanted to have answers ahead of time. So getting that genetically diagnosed early meant I had time to prepare.
For Dawn, it's the little things in life that matter most. Prior to her symptoms, the stay-at-home mom loved biking, something she can no longer do.
Trying to find joy in maybe it's the smaller things, not making it so big. Originally, my active lifestyle came from a therapeutic angle when I was a caregiver for my mom. So now just making sure I get walks with my children, walking them to school, going with them on a bike ride, going on a hike, just getting outdoors. Right now, you know, climbing 3 flights of stairs is not an issue. I hope it doesn't ever become an issue. So I can, but you know, getting on my bike with the kids, there's good days and bad days. They'll ask me, Mommy, can we go on a bike ride? Not today, Mommy's hands or Mommy's feet really hurt. Can we do something else? And you know, my son asked me, Mom, can you do martial arts with me? Maybe when your hands are better. I said, sure.
Dawn, you described Christina as a woman of quiet strength. You had a little bit of sass in there too. Can you tell us about that a little bit?
I feel like you're the sister I never had, you know. Yeah. And being able to share this journey with her and it not be so gloomy. You know, we can make, you know, dark jokes about, you know, what we want at our funeral and laugh. So it elevates a very sad situation, and I feel like I have someone to be with me who understands it at a deeper level.
Absolutely.
Health discussions also play a big role at Christina's home.
So I do keep my children very informed as to what's going on. We include them in everything because they are old enough to understand. I think it's important that they understand their future, how it's going to pan out. My daughter Anna, who is 17, has symptoms that could be amyloid. We do not know for certain. She is gene positive. She has had neuropathy for 3 years. It has spread from her feet to her hands, and now she has some autonomic neuropathy as well. With her being gene tested, it's very hard to discern what is amyloid because the biomarkers, it's very difficult to determine.
At such a young age.
And at such a young age. It's out of the norm, and it makes it just very difficult.
Their journeys often bring them here to Boston, where they meet with doctors to discuss next steps and possibilities. For now, the only treatment option for early-stage disease is liver transplantation. While treatment is currently limited to supportive care, there's always tomorrow.
The message we'd like to convey to families with ATTR is that there's hope. We and others in the academic institutions and biotech industry are developing important new medicines to help families. And we think and we hope that these treatments will be available soon, changing the lives of patients afflicted with this terrible disease.
For inspiration, Dawn often looks to a letter her mother wrote to her upon graduating from high school.
My dearest Dawn, you've just passed an important milestone in your life, graduation from high school. I've tried my best to give you all the tools
you might need to get through all the impasses life throws at you. I know even if I had another lifetime, I'd probably not cover giving all the knowledge it's going to take to get through. You know one thing, I'll always be there for you if you need me. I hope I've taught you to stand straight and tall, face your fears with courage and strength. The morning star in the sky is the limit for you, my sweet, and I will always be the wind
beneath your wings to help you soar. Always and lovingly, Mama.
I hope that this diagnosis doesn't mean an end of the road for someone, that it's a journey that you get to sidestep it and move on in your life rather than it being a tailspin, and it shouldn't be a destruction of a family. And now there are more options and that create hope.
Absolutely. I don't think I could say it any better than that. It's hope that for the future that we can move forward, that technology and research will continue on, medical treatments, so that we can eventually have a normal life and eradicate this disease and stop the generations from dying off.
Christina and Dawn also have hope for what the future may hold. And in the meantime, they carry on.
Thanks so much to our guests for sharing this information on hereditary ATTR. Again, there are a number of ways a patient can get diagnosed. For more information on a free screening program, go to ttrscreen.com. Like many young boys his age, 7-year-old Jackson Dunn Krause has many interests, and he loves hanging out with his twin sister. His parents say he is a funny kid and likes to laugh. This, despite his medical condition. Jackson has a rare, serious, and progressive genetic disorder that affects mostly boys. Jackson has Hunter syndrome. Our guest this morning, Dr. Barbara Burton, a professor of pediatrics at Northwestern University, and Dr. David Moulter, a professor of otolaryngology, Washington University School of Medicine at St. Louis. And we're going to meet Jackson and his mother a little bit later in the show. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for being here. Dr. Burton, let me start with you, and let's talk about Hunter syndrome. What exactly is it?
Hunter syndrome, also referred to as mucopolysaccharidosis or MPS type 2, is a rare genetic disorder that affects males almost exclusively. It is estimated to occur in about 1 in every 162,000 births. It's a serious and progressive condition for which we currently have no cure.
And let's talk about, doctor, the physical symptoms that maybe a parent notices. When do they become noticeable? What happens?
Typically, a baby with Hunter syndrome appears healthy at birth,
Okay.
but then at some point in the early years of life, symptoms begin to develop in multiple organ systems. There can be recurrent respiratory and ear infections. We see changes in the facial features called coarsening, resulting in thick lips, broad nose, large tongue. We also see an enlarged abdomen from enlargement of the liver and spleen. There can be chronic or recurrent diarrhea. Hernias are quite common, and we see progressive symptoms in the skeleton and in the joints, particularly progressive stiffness of the joints.
Dr. Moulter, I want to bring you into the conversation, and I do want our viewers to know that you are a otolaryngologist, which is also known as an ENT specialist, ear, nose, throat. Do you see any common threads between, let's say, a baby that's born healthy, and then obviously then symptoms occur? Common threads between both?
Certainly. Well, as an ear, nose, and throat specialist, we see things ear, nose, throat, and dental. And so often this begins with a course of recurring ear infections, which may lead to placement of tubes, sinus infections, upper respiratory infections, and changes in the facial features. We may see coarsening of the tongue, enlargements of the tonsils or adenoids, and may see some changes in the teeth, which are often described as being peg-like. These symptoms by themselves are certainly not a red flag and are common experiences with childhood. It's when they're associated with other findings, such as a hernia or the coarsening of the facial features, that should begin to raise a red flag for Hunters.
Dr. Burton?
Exactly. I think when you see multiple medical issues in the same child, that's when you want to see if there's a common thread or diagnosis that would explain all of those. And so a pediatrician or an ENT doctor might get suspicious, and then a specialist like myself, a geneticist, can recognize the combination, order the appropriate diagnostic tests, and make a diagnosis.
And Dr. Moulter, for parents out there who may be experiencing this, they don't know what's going on, they're going from doctor to doctor, it can be extremely frustrating, it is their child. What would you say in terms of maybe educating them and helping them so they can find the answers they need?
Well, it certainly is challenging. It's when you find that you're reaching challenges outside of the norm that referral to a geneticist would be appropriate.
All right, Dr. Moulter, I know you have to get going. Dr. Burton, you're going to stick around because thank you so much, Dr. Moulter, for being here this morning. Because when we come back, we're going to meet Jackson and his mother, very special boy, and we're going to share their story with you, so stay with us. Welcome back, everyone. We've been discussing a serious progressive genetic disorder called Hunter syndrome. And joining us now are Carrie Dunn and her 7-year-old son, Jackson Dunn Krause, who has this disorder. Good morning to both of you.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
Thanks for being here. Doctor, before I speak to this lovely young man, let's talk about Hunter syndrome. Now, we talked about two forms, mild and severe. Which one does Jackson have?
Jackson has a mild or perhaps intermediate form of the disorder where there's little or no involvement of the brain. Many patients with Hunter syndrome have the severe form where the brain is more extensively involved and we see more severe developmental delay or loss of developmental skills.
Now, Jackson, I hear you're 7. When are you going to be 8 years old? Big boy.
On April.
What day in April?
April 28th. April
Special
3rd.
day. And what grade are you in?
Second grade.
Second grade. And somebody told me this morning that you love school? What's your favorite subject?
Science and recess.
Science and recess. Perfect. We study for a little while and then we go play. I love that answer.
Definitely.
Carrie, let's talk about Jackson. Tell me what happened. Obviously, from what I've been learning here, he was born and everything seemed healthy at the beginning?
That's a great question. When Jackson was first coming to us, we realized that we were having twins. So I was followed by a high-risk pregnancy physician. When he was born, he spent some time right away in the NICU because of a collapsed lung. So he was having some distress pulmonary issues. And he spent some time there, and then they handed us our healthy baby and said, go enjoy the twins. And Sydney was growing a little bit faster and gaining her milestones a little bit earlier. Jackson was showing some signs early on that distressed us a little bit, in that he had a large distended belly. His skin was extremely taut. He was crawling what we'd like to call a commando crawl for quite a while, where his sister started walking.
And still you didn't know?
We didn't know, but we did seek the advice of numerous physicians, and we started therapies early on. Jackson started with occupational therapy, developmental therapy, speech therapy, sensory, feeding therapy, a little bit of everything, and this was all before he was 3.
And when was he finally diagnosed?
Right after his 3rd birthday. We had gotten a recommendation to see a geneticist, and as we went into the geneticist appointment, she discovered a hernia right away. So the red flag was he has a hernia, this large distended belly. His face was a little bit larger than most boys his age. The geneticist recommended that we see a metabolism specialist right away. And we were able to go into that appointment, and the doctor looked at us and said, I know what your son has. He has something called Hunter syndrome, otherwise known as MPS II.
And your reaction at that moment?
I was happy that I had a diagnosis.
I was thinking that.
I was devastated to know that my son would suffer for a while with many different ailments, but the road is a long road.
And doctor, let's talk about that road. 3 years to get a diagnosis, 3 years of a mother knowing, something's not right here. Mm-hmm. She gets the diagnosis. Is Jackson's history typical for patients with Hunter syndrome?
Well, unfortunately, it is typical that a patient sees multiple physicians, many doctor visits for a lot of different complaints until they finally get that diagnosis. The specific combination of findings varies quite a bit from child to child, but certainly that diagnostic odyssey of searching for a diagnosis is a very, very common phenomenon.
And Carrie, obviously you're here today because we need to create that awareness and educate others about this Hunter syndrome. Mm-hmm. Support groups, did they help you also once you got that diagnosis?
Most definitely. The support of your family and friends is very important, but then we reached out right after that appointment and we found a connection through the National MPS Society. They were a great resource for families just to learn about the disease, but also to help you in this journey that you're taking. The website for that is www.mpssociety.org, and just tremendous amount of help for us as a family.
And doctor, what advice would you give to parents out there who may suspect that maybe their child has Hunter syndrome?
Well, if there are multiple medical issues like we've been discussing, I would recommend they talk to their pediatrician and seek consultation from a specialist like a geneticist. Early diagnosis is so terribly important to ensure that a child gets the appropriate medical care.
And do you have a website for our viewers to learn more about it?
Well, information is available at a website called hunterpatients.com.
Hunterpatients.com.
Yes.
Carrie, for anyone out there who may be, experiencing this or may not know, what would you say?
I would say please just follow your gut. Go with your instincts. You know as a parent that if something's just not right, search till you find the answer.
Thank you so much for your time and for the education you've given us this morning. Carrie, thank you so much for bringing your son and sharing his story. Jackson, thank you so much. Do you get along with your sister? That's good too. Thank you. God bless him.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Bye, Jackson. Thank you. And for more information on managing Hunter syndrome, please visit hunterpatients.com or our website, thebalancingact.com. What an incredible show with such amazing people,
Yes,
Julie.
indeed. It takes so much strength and courage to take your adversity straight on. Be sure to keep an eye out for other Behind the Mystery segments in the future.
And well, that's our show for today. Head to our Facebook page and our website, and always follow us on Twitter. We've got lots more there.
Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time.